Councilmember Katie Parrish.
Present.
Common Councilmember Scott Harrington is excused. Common Councilmember John Rafter.
Present.
Is there any additions, subtractions to the minutes of the last meeting?
I don't believe I was here for the last meeting, so.
And I don't believe we've received them yet, so I just might see what the reaction was. Okay.
So we received three proposals for the engineering design services for the design of new bridge decks for Center Street Bridge and the Clinton Street Bridge. We are currently evaluating the proposals and hope to have a recommendation for council next week.
The funding for this would be through the CHIPS program, I believe.
Correct.
Basically all state funded CHIPS are one of the related programs. So, expected that the consultant complete design late this year, this winter sometime.
This winter, yeah.
And then we'll be looking at a construction bid for next year.
Bidding or design is supposed to be completed by the end of January, bidding February, construction in the spring.
So the Center Street Bridge that we're talking about is at Brook?
Yes,
Okay, cool.
yeah, that's what we have the bid written down,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
It says there's a special event, but it's been the longest, most important special event we've ever had in the city. Anyway, I'm relieved. It was great.
We could paint
What's that?
the church barriers.
Could do that, absolutely.
Oh my gosh. You're right.
So it's
Should.
fair minimum, the folks on Brook Street in that neighborhood, they're looking at another year.
Yes.
I actually just was asked that question last Wednesday, and didn't have an answer, so. Okay, good. So we actually don't know how much all of this is going to cost, correct?
The design, rough estimates, probably somewhere between 30 and 50,000, would be my guess. We have a low bidder that's in that range. The high bidder, I believe, was crazy, 170, something like that. Way outside, I'm not really sure what they misunderstood about the bid, but we have two bidders that are really close. We're still evaluating them.
And then when it actually comes to the repairing of the two bridges,
That would be paid for through CHIPS funding.
That's awesome.
topic B.
Judy, do you want to start? You want me to start? I mean,
I can start,
okay.
and you can fill in. We're still researching this grant, but there's a grant opportunity that's due on September 15th it's a planning grant for, it's called USDOT. It's funded by USDOT. It's called the Safe Streets and Roads for All. You can apply for money to create a Safe Streets action plan. You'd be looking to eliminate roadway fatalities and serious injuries and provide a safety goal. You can apply for between $200,000 and $1 million. Local match would be 20%. At the end of it, what you identify as changes that are needed to meet the action plan, you could then go for money to implement those projects later. So we're still researching it to figure out exactly what's involved. I have a couple weeks to do that. Greg, do you have anything you want to add?
That was a pretty good summary, really. It's, like she said, we're still reviewing it to see if it's something we think would be competitive for. We don't have a comprehensive safety action plan right now. You might have heard of a thing called Vision Zero. Some cities having the Vision Zero being the vision of having zero fatalities due to, vehicular crashes. Yeah, I don't think there's much more to say right now. We're going to see if it's something we think that we have a chance at getting, it's worth obviously, like we've talked about the planning documents, this is a planning document you need in order to apply for the implementation funding. You know, if it's something we think that is going to be successful for us, then I recommend pursuing it. As part of the cost, we have to determine that. I can't imagine this is going to be anywhere near $1 million for a plant for a city our size. It would be a much smaller amount. So, to be determined, but we just want to evaluate something we're looking at.
So the grant is to help develop the plan?
Yes.
Okay, not, oh, and then it's seeking funding for additional for implementation.
Right, the plan will identify action items, and then we could later seek implementation funding for those action items.
Okay, that makes sense.
But there's a couple of prerequisites, can you say it, that make you more likely to get the funding. And so we're looking into that to see if we think we meet those.
Cool.
We have to have an answer by the council, this next council, because the thing is due the 15th, so we would need the authorization. So we're gonna dive into it and figure it out before council.
Okay. And
So you're updating us, but you're going to drop it on the council?
Well, yeah, we're updating you, and I think it'll have to probably go on as a discussion item unless you want to put it forward without having any details yet.
I was going to say,
It'll have to be
what are you
discussed.
voting on?
Right. Well, we'd be voting on it, at least a $200,000 grant with a 20% match coming from wherever Ginny's identifying is going to come from. That's what you'd be voting on tonight.
Yeah, so it would be a discussion.
Yeah.
For sure.
So I think for the discussion of it, you're potentially going to have a council, some of the background information would be nice, some examples in New York State that they've done the safe streets. See where we have that,
Right.
unsafe streets.
We'll see. I don't know. We'll have to see what we come up with.
is this something, I'm sorry, Judy, I didn't mean to go. Is this something that, I know we've been talking a lot over the years for a long time, for as long as I can remember, about walkability on Lettuce Highway? Is this something that could, move us in that direction?
Probably would be one of the items identified is to improve that, because that is where we actually had a fatality. I think the count that they're looking at is between 2016 and 2020, and that's the one that came up
Okay.
Well, on Lettuce Highway,
in the whole city.
we had a fatality at the intersection of Main and Chestnut Street by a gentleman that identified it as a dangerous intersection before he was killed.
What year?
2017.
It didn't come up.
His name was Dan.
I'm basing that based on the map that this application sends us to, and that's the data that USDOT has tracked.
I'm scratching my brain. I actually don't think of, I can't recall a death on Lettuce Highway.
There was a woman who's
The woman that
crossed the highway.
crossed Lettuce Highway.
Crosswalk, but probably 1,000 feet south of the intersection in Maine.
Okay.
Who was it? I forget what year that was.
I think it was like
I think it was like
last
seven.
Was it 20?
Maybe 2 years ago.
Yeah, I think it was 18. I think it was 18.
I retired in 15. I think it was a couple years after I retired. I remember Dan, we used to talk, he was a Navy veteran, but he was there. And then there was another gentleman, Alan, he was on his bicycle, and he was coming up over the crosswalk, and somebody hit him when he was on his bicycle, pinned him underneath the bike.
Yikes.
So I know what those, but I'm not thinking of that.
Yeah, she was hospitalized for a couple days, I think, and then ultimately died.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we
And I know
have
so
to-
many people walk out there to get to work from South Valley, so.
Yeah, obviously we have the TAP, Transportation Alternatives Program, the DOT grant, but we'll be putting sidewalk in, like, won't be that along that side.
Yeah.
That's- that's-
I don't know if this project will ultimately impact that, because there is funding for it.
Yeah, okay, good to know.
Katie, that project that you're talking about is a shared project with the town. Right?
Yeah.
It's we're like 1.5 and they're 1.2 or something, whatever the numbers are.
I think our
That's
estimated portion won't let it.
8, they're about 1.3. And then by the landing grant.
Copy topic C.
Okay, I'll take care of that one. So we have a $6.9 million water project that we're applying for WIA, which is Water Infrastructure Improvement Act funding through the state, as well as DWSRF funding, which is Drinking Water State Revolving Fund funding. These applications are due on the 9th?
September 9th.
9th. You should know that because it's like coming right up. Okay, so the $6.9 million project will allow us to make the West End water storage tank taller to allow for better pressures and flows and
By replacing it entirely.
by replacing it entirely. Thank you. And then we're also going to be improving sorry, I got too many notes. We're also going to be doing distribution improvements to Overlook Drive, College Terrace, and Suncrest Terrace. We are eligible for bill money, the bipartisan infrastructure law money, along with the WIA money. And it's kind of hard to explain this. The projects are eligible for up to 70% grant between those two funding sources, up to a $5 million cap per year. So I have to back up a little bit. We had the water treatment plant project that got the $3 million in WIA money in April. That was about a $6.5 million project. That project is also eligible for up to the 70% grant. So we may get more grant on that, above the $3 million. But the combination of the grant from that project and the grant from this new water project can only be $5 million coming out of the same year. So that means that we're probably going to get about $3 million and some change in the grant for the new one, because the other one is going to increase. So those are pretty good grant amounts, even though we have the $5 million cap. So what we're looking for is council, we would need a bond resolution that Ginny has prepared. Ginny has had our bond council prepared. We're going to need a seeker resolution for a type 2 action. We're going to need an authorizing resolution for both of these grants. One is actually going to be for loan funding, 0% for 30 years. And we also are going to need a resolution authorizing John Janetz to be the alternate minority business officer, which is a requirement of the WIA grant, that we have the alternate. I'm the MBO, and he will be the alternate MBO. So all of those we would like to have go up to council.
Questions?
No. I'm pretty excited.
I'm really excited because this is not all that we're going to be coming to you with. We have a lot more coming down the pike. It's really exciting.
So we're looking at two $6.9 million grants.
Well, we're looking at a $6.5 million project and a $6.9 million project, and a $5 million grant between the two of them, plus the original WIA grant on the first $6.5 million project of $3 million. So potentially $8 million on $12 million projects.
Plus the 0% loan for.
Plus 0% loan for 30 years.
Is a grant in and of itself.
Yeah.
Be interesting.
So it's just an awesome, and both projects should be able to get the 0% at 30 years. If you, well, let me qualify that. If you get the bill funding, that automatically comes with a 0% 30-year loan with balance. The water project that we submitted last year and just got the money in April for has a higher score than the project that we're doing now. So they likely will be able to reach this project with the same package at that 70% grant, but there's some question if they can reach down to the score that this project has. But I'm optimistic. I think we're get it. So, and what will happen is we submit the applications for this project, and then the funding program has an intended use plan, which is a document that comes out every single year. Their fiscal year is October 1st through September 30th, so the new one is out in draft form right now. It'll be finalized sometime after October. Once it's finalized, then we'll go through, EFC will go through, and they'll make all the award letters after that. So we'll know what we get once the award letter comes out, hopefully in October or November, I hope. And it'll be for both projects. Yes, so then we'll know, and then we can decide what we're going to do based on what funding we get. So fingers crossed that this one that we're submitting, that they could reach all the way down the list to the score that that project has. It's at the bottom of the score that they've reached in the past.
Distribution system projects don't score well, they don't score very high. Typically, they're not reachable, but given the amount of funding that's out there now, that's probably a reason to be optimistic that we might be able to get some funding for that.
Yeah.
Typically, you can't expect to get any federal or state assistance for replacing the water maintenance.
So the first water treatment plant project has a score of 85. So it's very close to their funding line. It's under the funding line, but it's very close. This project with distribution has a score of 45. But in the past, WIA has reached projects with scores of 45. And the bill money is $150 million more each year between 2022 and 2026. So that extra money should help get down to that level.
Should be deeper in the score.
We hope. Yeah, fingers crossed. Can't get it if we don't submit. I'm very optimistic. I'm not always optimistic about these things, but I am on this one, so I'm really hoping we'll get it. It's a ton of money that they've got.
The bond resolution will be the total of the 6.9, but the resolution does indicate that the actual bonding will be reduced by any grant proceeds that we receive.
Thanks for the heads up on that.
Yeah, if we went with a lower loan amount in the, or borrowing authorization in the bond resolution, we'd be worried that we'd have to do it again. Now, the first project, we did that at 5.65 a year ago, but we had an opportunity to list it again on the IDP, knowing that this extra money was there and prices have done nothing but go up. So that went up to 6.5. That one, when we're ready to go and we have the award letter, we'll need to amend the bond resolution to increase the amount that we're authorized for the total project cost.
And as I explained in the budget meeting last week, any debt issuance for water projects does not go against our debt limit, and we'll just be able to adjust rates accordingly to raise the funds for our new debt payments. So it's very manageable.
And the 30-year loan is 0% interest, that's contingent on whether we qualify also?
Well, that's, okay, so if we get the bill funding on either project or both projects, it's an automatic 0% 30 years. If we don't get the bill funding on the project with the score of 45, they may not be able to, SRF may not be able to reach us as a hardship community with their 0% 30 years loan. So hopefully we get the bill money, they can reach us, and we don't have to worry about that. So if we don't get it, then it's a matter of if we can, if we don't get the bill funding, then but we do get the WIA money, then we would be eligible for probably a subsidized rate or market rate. Well, all their loans are subsidized. But it wouldn't be a hardship, so it wouldn't be super low, but it might be in the 3 to 4% at most rate for, I believe, up to 30 years. Or we could bond it through our own resources. That's like, worst case is we don't get any grant, and then that's second worst case. we don't get the 0% one.
In the past, for instance, with the wastewater plant upgrade, clean water to rainwater, but the same SRF that we're going to bond it instead of taking the beaches loan to get a bond rate was better.
Well, not on the big wastewater project, that was a 0%. We would get for the great big one.
Or something you would have a project would be bonded instead.
I think you're thinking of the NIPA project, right?
Okay.
The NIPA project, the interest rate is much higher going through NIPA than it was going through our own bonds.
Yeah, the clean water, that was an $8 million, that's going to be, it hasn't closed long-term yet, it's going to soon, almost $8 million, or almost $7 million, is that right, on the loan portion? Because we had $2 million. It was a $9 million project, we had $2 million in grant, and we had the balance.
Of the 6%. But, yeah, you're talking about wastewater treatment? Yeah, 6 million. Yeah.
million at 0% for 30 years. And we had a short-term 0% loan.
And the EFC, usually their interest rates are lower even than what we would do ourselves. So it's much better to go through them if you can.
Yeah. So we'll know all that sometime this fall or early winter, hopefully. Depends on how soon they get award letters out. And then we'll be able to figure out exactly, we'll know what we have and then be able to make decisions on what we're moving forward with.
What agency is this?
Environmental Facilities Corporation. They're an agency tasked by New York State. They're actually a private company tasked by New York State to run the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund Program and the Clean Water State Revolving Fund Program, WIA, the Green Infrastructure Grant Program. There's a number of programs that they do. Engineering planning grants. They basically are the arm of, they're not New York State agency, but they're the arm of New York State that handles the water and sewer funding.
We just paid off one that we issued back in 2002, and we'll be paying off another one next year that we originally issued in 2003. Both of those were refinanced in 2012 and in 2013 because the interest rates were much lower, and they were able to refinance them for us, and it saved hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Any other questions?
Nope.
Topic D.
The Swift Wilcox team has received a donation that is restricted for planting trees, and we just need the council to accept the donation, and we need to authorize the mayor to sign a donation form that they have requested, which I've had Dave Merzick review.
The amount,
It's $500
$500. And where are they planting the trees?
down at the Swift Wilcox.
Is there anyone not in favor of $7,500 for trees?
No.
Okay.
The trees also are in memory of a person, and I have not communicated with the company yet as far as how much I'm not able to make public, but I will let you know when I go to write up the motion.
Topic E.
We need to have the council approve a budget amendment for the code enforcement expenses that were done on 3 Hill Place. We had about a $7,700 bill for removing all of the trash that was in that area. So I would like to have a budget amendment to increase the expenditure and then also to increase the revenue that we're going to be charging to the homeowner.
What was the address?
3 Hill Place? And that's all I have as far as budget amendments.
Is there any additional agenda items?